Let me draw you a map. It is amazing and annoying, immersive and incomprehensible, expansive and exhausting, magnificent yet mediocre, legendary while lacking. I'm referring to the Mystara trail maps, which, while listed as two different products, are only ever spoken of in a single breath. When these things came out, they were one of the greatest gaming aids ever created. They combined almost all the Gazetteer maps into a single one, consolidating your entire collection into a 2-page foldout you could reveal to your players and show exactly where they are. But then the cracks started to appear. There were flaws. There were mistakes. More continuity problems were found in all the charts, which was quite a lot even for a Mystara product. But despite all the errors, the maps remained a status symbol and one that could never be recreated. Trust me on that one. We'll be getting to the latest attempt to try that in a bit. Welcome to Mystara. I'm Mr. Welch, and today we're earning our Orienteering Merit Badge. The trail maps were released as a 2-part set in '89, with the eastern and western map showcasing the known world from Sin to the Isle of Dawn. They were huge, 36 by 57 inches combined. When you put them side by side, they were 6 foot by almost 5 foot. They were, of course, in the famous hexagonal map style, and they showed off so much more detail, and it was quite impressive. Everybody had to have them, and they weren't that expensive when they first came out. Even better, there was no dead space on them. Where originally there was just tons of hexes of nothing but water, tundra, and mountains, here there was a little bit of information on the various details about Mystara. And since this is Mystara, you know exactly how many mountains we're talking about. That's a lot of info bubbles. The maps covered places that had never been mentioned before. Do you want to go to Provincia Septentrionia on the Isle of Dawn? Head over to the Tower of Licinius. It's just above Lutetia and Latvia, which have never appeared on any other map. The desert to the east of those cities, that's just 3 hexes of sand on the official Isle of Dawn map, now it has a name, the Black Dust Desert, and you can explore the ruins of Fjellstud in the north of that. There's no lore on any of these newly named areas, but at least now you know what you're looking at. One reason for all the new information is the scale of the maps is 1 to 8 compared to the 1 to 24 maps previous. It allowed for much more detail, such as showing the borders of the various counties or baronies in multiple nations. There are nice additional details, like some of the mountains getting real names for once instead of, hey, here's another nameless mountain. Want to climb the tallest peak in Keramikos? It's Mount Pavel, standing 5,800 feet tall. It can be found about 32 miles northwest of Threshold. Assuming that all the mountains in Mystara are relatively new because of the elemental shifting that happened a few centuries ago, you can use the ratio of 2 to 1 where it's twice as wide as it is tall. That's a rough estimate with many modifiers, but Mount Pavel would be about 2 miles across, leaving you 6 miles to play with in that hex. Thanks to my various mountaineering fans for spontaneously telling me those facts to help with immersion. I'm not sure how accurate it is, but they all seem to be giving me rough guidelines. Well, now I've had contributions from NASA and the National Geographical Society to this channel. So National Hurricane Institute, I'm waiting for your email if I ever start talking about the weather. One change from the older maps is some of the module locations are gone where they were included in the Gazetteer maps. Other module locations have been added, and there's little rhyme or reason to what's been included, what's been dropped, and what was altered. Some of these are fixes like the Kalari elves being moved closer to Kelvin away from the Dimrock Forest, as they were established to live alongside the Castellan River. The goblins are shifted to the west of Rugalev village instead of being due north. Minor changes like these will not factor into the games of anyone except the most die-hard players. Still, they will lead to awkward questions from players wanting clarification on exactly where they are. Use the map you've got, either the Gazetteer map, a fan map corrected for continuity, or the trail map if you've got it hanging on the wall. So why all the admiration if it's just a few minor tweaks here and there? Because of the charts. Charts that never appear anywhere else in any books. Charts that part-time players and DMs would glance over, but deep dive lore people like me absolutely fell in love with. There's a whole host of information that can generate adventure hooks with a simple die roll. Most of these are at the bottom of each map, but there's a few charts scattered across the edges on some of them. They're a combination of fluff like Phaeacian impressions of the rest of the world, to crunchy charts like the chance of precipitation based on the day and month of each region. Starting with the Western Trail map, this one gives you the Glantrian horoscope and the time zones of the known world in the upper right corner. If you want your players to determine their horoscopes, that's where you find them. The time zones aren't going to come into play unless you've got some teleportation going on, and even then it's just an hour or two difference. The far left side has the weather chart, extending almost the entire map length. It covers not only the chance of precipitation, but what kind, and even gives you the chance for fog in both the morning and evening. If you have to go full total immersion on your players, this is how you do it. Good luck getting good weather when you adventure in Clantyr during autumn. Skipping down to the bottom of the western chart, this is where the Darrican players start salivating. trail and road condition charts, complete with its impact on overland travel, including everything from a single person on foot to a miles-long caravan. Because the merchant prince is just waiting for the dungeon master to tell them that the road ahead for the caravan counts as rough terrain. They've been hoarding that clear road spell for 3 levels, waiting for this very moment. There is a section on the largest mountains, size, elevation, and location. When the dwarf is looking for a new home, Mount Schist is the Mystaran equivalent of Everest, though standing 4,000 feet shorter. Unfortunately, it's also in Glantry, making it renting out for your family vacation a bit tricky. The rest of the map is both practical and trivial. There's a lunar schedule, wind and current patterns for naval travel, conversion charts for all the currencies, and even a reprint of the calendar that's in most of the gazetteers. Moving on to the eastern map, you've only got charts along the bottom, with a few duplications like the lunar schedule and currency chart. This one is a lot less fluffy than the western map, with only a list of major universities that are given without much explanation. It does have several places never mentioned before that did deserve some fleshing out, like the large gray house, the Alphatian Spy School. There is a large pair of charts covering demographic information on all the nations, with some basic data like the most common alignment in each, the amount of law enforcement found, and the overall motivation of their governments. It also gives square mileage, population, average income, emergency treasury reserves, and the population percentage of what can be called up as part of the military. The only other chart is a list of diseases in the known world, ranging from real-world alignments like malaria to fictional maladies like the griffin pox. It tells you where you can catch each one, the effects, the chance of survival, how long it's going to last, and any long-lasting penalties if not cured. But that's for another video. So with all this cool stuff, what are the problems with the maps that I've been discussing? First, it is impractical. Again, the combined dimensions are 72 inches by 57 inches, meaning the maps will cover the entire table or take a massive chunk out of your wall. They are accordion folded and made only of paper, so they rip easy. You can have them laminated if you can find a place that can handle a map that size. You can get them framed, but getting a custom frame that size will cost you $212 at Michael's, and it's too big to get a glass insert. I know, I called them yesterday and asked. The price to buy these things secondhand will set you back $100 for each map. You might get lucky and get one for less, but not much. They are one of the most collectible Mystara products ever made. But wait! They've got the maps over at the DM's Guild and Drive Thru RPG, and the Eastern Trail maps are free! So for $4.95, I can have a complete map of the known world with all the fixings! Yes! And no. The problem is the trail maps in their PDF form are absolutely worthless. Do you see that? That's how all the maps are broken down, one page at a time, in random order. It's not combined. You must print out each page and reassemble them like a jigsaw puzzle. Oh, and some of the pieces aren't full pages because the size of the maps doesn't break down cleanly, so you get a tiny sliver of a map that is just there. Several of the pages have some overlap, and most of the charts are split between the two pages. This is not as bad as on the eastern map, but it is glaring on the western map. Those are your two options for the trail maps. Spend a lot of money for something that requires a lot more money and space to display because folding them is difficult and downright terrifying in this day and age. Trust me again, I had to unfold both maps repeatedly for this video. They're larger than my table, so I had to do it on the bed, and I own 4 cats. I don't have 30 square feet of wall space to hang these, and I certainly don't have $100 to get them framed. Or you can try to make sense of the random pictures that are the PDFs. But what good is a map if you have to figure out which unnumbered section on the map is the next one for the party to travel to? But what about online resources? Yes, there is the Atlas of Mystara, the go-to source for all your Mystara map needs. But those maps don't include the sidebars with all those valuable bits of information. They can also be too large for some computers depending on which file you download, as they are meant to be a gaming aid that you can zoom in all the way, so they are very high resolution. Sadly, these are the best options for most needs, even without all the extras not found elsewhere. They are an excellent quality map, but they don't include travel times or weather charts for legal reasons. You can't play Red Arrow Black Shield on them without additional help, and I wouldn't recommend using the trail maps to play Red Arrow and Black Shield anyways unless you have a few years to kill for a 10th level module. But wait! Don't lose hope just yet, for there is one man that can help return us the trail maps, the magnificently mad Mystara map maker Thorfinn Tate. He helped me quite a bit with this video as we talked at length about the strengths and weaknesses of the trail maps. He didn't want to include the sidebars on his recreations for legal reasons. Wizards might have a problem with somebody replicating their product, even if they consider Mystara problematic and wish it would be forgotten, except for small throwaway snippets they give to us as member berries in their various books. I keep getting told Mystara is problematic, but never who has a problem with it. It's not the people whose cultures are being turned into fantasy elements. Mystara outsold all the other settings in foreign nations when it was in print. People like having their culture shown in a favorable light, especially when taking the legendary versions of those nations. So whoever has a problem with this, it's not the people actually buying and playing Mystara, but there is a way around reprinting the trail maps. The fan creation license, the same one that gave us the Mystara Player's Guide. Most of the charts are system neutral. A nation has this many people, has this much income, and it's this big. That can be used in any game system. The weather charts are just a percentile roll for each day. Again, a standalone system used in any edition. Replace the charts that would cause an issue with different charts. Add more sites to the map, like we talked about, for the smaller towns and villages that got left off for some reason. And there you go. Completely legal per their own rules that they wrote. Not like they would even notice. Come on, Thorfinn. You know you want to do it. The call of the compass rose can't be denied, even as you listen to this video in only a tammy and kilt with ink-smudged thumbs on each nipple in cartographic ecstasy. As one man who bleeds plaid to another, do it for our ancestors. Innerleithen is about as far as Kildare as Houston is to Kerrville. Our ancestors were practically next-door neighbors. You can make the ultimate map of the known world. It is your calling, your destiny, your magnum opus. Your ancestors will be proud. Your status among gamers would be raised to that of legendary, and your extended family would hold you in the highest honor. Do it for Aaron, for Bruce, for Mystara, for Alina. If anybody would like to encourage him in this endeavor, you can always send him gifts of ancient maps, whiskey, or just join his Patreon. I'll put a link in the description. It won't be easy, but if he's got a lot of people supporting him, it'll be a lot easier than usual. That's the trail maps. They are expensive, impractical, enormous, and one of the most gorgeous supplements Mystara has ever had. You will never use them, but when your friends come over, you will show off the giant map on your wall in the biggest flex you can do in Mystara. Or piece the PDF together in Photoshop to actually recreate the map, and then take that PDF down to Walmart and spend about $50 and have it turned into a shower curtain. Granted, there's not many adventures in the setting that would require a map of this size. The next remaster is the last of my old shames to get replaced, the Veiled Society. One of the most classic B-series modules, and the only one that's not a dungeon crawl, but a city-based murder mystery, with the villain's name on the back of the cover. But until then... No, not my sister Mary, her legs are way too hairy, I'll make mine a sheep tonight. Not even my best friend Ryan, halfway through he starts to cry and just make mine a sheep tonight. Clan Ross represent!